That bigger house and the luxury SUV parked in your driveway at age 40 are not rewards for your hard-earned success. The brutal truth is that they are well-dressed thieves, silently robbing you of over $1 million in retirement money right in broad daylight. Today, I am going to expose the biggest lie of the modern 40-something dream. I will show you exactly why the next 10 years will decide whether you live like royalty at age 65 or if you will be forced to work part-time at a hardware store just to pay for your blood pressure medication. You might think that reaching a high income in your 40s is your ultimate financial life raft. Actually, it is the very match that will burn your future to the ground if you do not understand this one absolute rule. Your 40s sit at the exact intersection of three massive financial forces that will never, ever align again at any other point in your entire life. Understanding these forces explains why this single decade dictates everything that follows. The first force is your peak earning power. For most professionals, income reaches its absolute maximum somewhere between 42 and 55. The frequent promotions and massive percentage raises that felt so significant in your 30s might slow down or stop entirely. But the absolute dollars coming into your bank account are higher than they have ever been, and they are likely higher than they will ever be again. This means your 40s represent the years when you have the most raw material available for building immense generational wealth. A 45-year-old earning $120,000 can potentially save more in absolute cash than they could at any previous point in their career. The second force is your remaining compounding time. At 40, you still have 20 to 25 years until traditional retirement age. That is exactly enough time for your money to roughly quadruple at historical stock market returns. A single dollar invested at age 40 becomes approximately $4 by the time you hit 65. But watch what happens next. At age 50, you only have 15 years remaining. That same dollar only becomes roughly $2.50. At 55, with just 10 years left, a dollar becomes barely $2. The compounding multiplier drops right off a steep cliff with every single passing year. Your 40s represent the absolute last decade, where meaningful, life-changing compounding remains mathematically possible. The money you invest at 42 works drastically harder than the money you desperately try to invest at 52. The third force is expense stabilization. By your 40s, many of your major life expenses have finally peaked or even begun declining. Your children become more independent and eventually leave the house. The home you stretched your budget to afford in your 30s now fits quite comfortably within your higher income. Your career wardrobe is established. The heavy furniture is already bought. This natural stabilization creates a massive potential profit margin that simply did not exist in your 30s, when every single expense category was growing simultaneously. You have high income, and you have a stabilizing baseline, but society tells you to upgrade your life to match your new title. Therefore, you inflate your lifestyle, and that massive profit margin gets instantly swallowed by new debt. Because of that, you permanently lose the last great compounding window of your life. These three forces combine to create a decade of unusual, unrepeatable leverage. The person who captures this alignment builds substantial wealth effortlessly. The person who misses it faces cold, hard mathematical constraints that absolutely cannot be overcome, no matter how hard they work in their 50s. Let me show you the exact numbers that illustrate this brutal leverage. Consider someone who reaches 40 with $100,000 in retirement savings. They earn $110,000 annually and could reasonably save 15% of their income, which is $16,500 per year. If they actually save that 15% from age 40 to 65, investing in diversified index funds returning 8% annually, they will accumulate approximately $1.35 million by retirement. Combined with Social Security, they are looking at a very comfortable retirement with significant safety margins. If, instead, they save only 5% during their 40s because they want to live large, and then panic and increase their savings rate to 15% at age 50 when retirement suddenly feels terrifyingly urgent, they will accumulate only $780,000 by retirement. That is $570,000 less, despite only 10 years of reduced contributions. The contributions in your 40s matter disproportionately because they have 25 full years to compound. The mathematical leverage of time cannot be recovered through increased panic contributions later in life. Now, consider a third, even more common scenario. This person reaches 40 with the same $100,000. But instead of saving during their 40s, they actually decrease their retirement contributions to fund a massive lifestyle expansion. They upgrade the house. They buy nicer cars. They take expensive international vacations to post on social media. Their 40s contributions drop to just 2% of their income. At 50, reality finally sets in. They panic and try to catch up, aggressively saving 20% of their income toward retirement. Despite this desperate 50s saving spree, they accumulate barely $590,000 by age 65. They're comfortable, Flashy 40s cost them exactly $760,000 in retirement wealth compared to consistent saving. The decade of bad decisions created a massive gap that a decade of aggressive correction simply could not close. You cannot outwork 20 years of lost compound interest. Let me walk through the specific, devastating decisions that matter most during this critical decade. The first, and arguably the most dangerous, decision involves housing. Your 40s often bring an overwhelming, socially driven urge to upgrade your living situation. The kids are bigger and seemingly need more space. You feel you have earned your success and desperately want a home that physically reflects it to your peers. The higher mortgage payments suddenly feel manageable given your new peak income. This housing upgrade decision might be the single most consequential financial choice you make in your entire life. The family that upgrades from a $350,000 home to a $600,000 home increases their monthly housing cost by roughly $1,500 to $2,000. That is $18,000 to $24,000 annually that absolutely cannot be invested. Over the 25 years, from age 40 to 65, that annual difference compounds to somewhere between $900,000 and $1.3 million in lost retirement wealth. The house upgrade literally costs $1 million in retirement money. I am not suggesting nobody should ever buy a larger home. I am suggesting that most people make this massive decision without understanding its true, hidden cost. They think they are merely spending an extra $1,800 per month on housing. They are actually spending over $1 million in future retirement wealth. The family that stays in the modest home and invests the difference creates incredible life options the upgrading family never has. They can retire a decade earlier. They can work part-time rather than full-time in their 60s. They can weather massive financial emergencies without facing total catastrophe. The second disastrous decision involves vehicles. Your 40s often bring significantly more expensive car purchases. The practical, reliable sedan gets replaced by a heavy luxury vehicle. The dependable family SUV gets traded in for something prestigious with a European badge. The family running two $45,000 vehicles instead of two $28,000 vehicles has approximately $34,000 more in auto debt, pays vastly higher insurance premiums, and faces far more expensive repairs over time. This luxury vehicle premium costs somewhere between $200,000 and $400,000 in retirement wealth, depending on exactly how frequently those vehicles are replaced. The third decision involves your children, specifically their lifestyle and education. Your 40s typically include the most expensive child-rearing years. Teenagers need cars, insurance, expensive travel sports, and eventually, college tuition. Some families take on Parent Plus loans exceeding $100,000 to send their children to prestigious, out-of-state universities. Others completely cash out their fragile retirement accounts to fund this education. Others simply stop contributing to their retirement entirely during those critical college years. Each of these emotional decisions literally mortgages the parents' retirement to unconditionally fund the children's education. The children graduate into their peak earning years with their whole careers ahead of them. The parents enter their 50s with entirely depleted savings and barely a single decade left to recover. The families who navigate this successfully often make highly uncomfortable, unpopular choices. They require their children to attend affordable state universities or schools offering heavy merit scholarships. They maintain their retirement contributions, even when college bills create intense emotional pressure to stop. Let me tell you the story of David and Christine to illustrate exactly how these small, daily decisions aggressively compound. David and Christine married in their late 20s. By age 40, they had $185,000 in retirement accounts, owned a modest home worth $320,000 with a manageable mortgage, and were raising two children. Their combined income had reached a very comfortable $165,000. They had critical choices to make about how to perfectly navigate the coming decade. David aggressively pushed for upgrading their home, arguing they deserved it. A comparable home in a significantly nicer development would cost $575,000. Christine felt extremely hesitant, but eventually agreed. The housing upgrade instantly increased their monthly fixed costs by $1,650. They adjusted by immediately reducing their retirement contributions from 15% down to 6%. It was only temporary, they told themselves. 2 years later, David's older car developed minor problems. Rather than repair it, they completely convinced themselves he had earned a much nicer car. The brand new luxury SUV added $680 to their monthly expenses. Christine's car got a similar, expensive upgrade just a year later. The children's high school years brought private sports training, expensive tutoring, and lavish college visits. When their first child proudly enrolled at an out-of-state university, David and Christine quietly took out a massive Parent Plus loan rather than asking their daughter to make a more affordable, realistic choice. Throughout their entire 40s, David and Christine never once felt financially irresponsible. Every individual decision seemed perfectly reasonable and thoroughly justified at the time. By 50, Reality hit them like a freight train. Their retirement accounts held just $240,000. That is only $55,000 more than they had at 40, despite 10 full years of ongoing contributions and a booming stock market. The kids were finally independent, so David and Christine desperately committed to catching up. They aggressively maxed out every possible retirement contribution. By 65, they had accumulated $685,000. It felt like a lot of money, until they finally sat down and ran the grim retirement projections. They would likely run entirely out of money by age 82. They would absolutely need to sell the house, dramatically reduce their basic expenses, and practically be forced to work well into their 70s. Now, let me tell you the contrasting story of Robert and Jennifer. Robert and Jennifer looked remarkably similar to David and Christine at age 40. They had a combined income of $155,000, retirement savings of $165,000, and two young children. Robert briefly suggested upgrading to a much larger home in a wealthier neighborhood. Jennifer pushed back incredibly hard. She had read about the devastating mathematical impact of housing decisions on retirement outcomes. They finally agreed to stay in their current, perfectly fine home. The decision felt like a painful sacrifice initially, especially when visiting friends. But that $1,650 monthly difference flowed directly and automatically into their retirement accounts. When Robert Carr finally needed replacing, they quietly bought a 3-year-old, certified pre-owned vehicle. When college rapidly approached, they had brutally honest, difficult conversations with their teenagers about real-world costs. Both kids proudly attended state universities with merit scholarships. Throughout their 40s, Robert and Jennifer often felt like they were swimming against a very strong social current. Their lifestyle looked noticeably modest compared to their flashy peers. But by age 50, the math took over. Their retirement accounts held a staggering $580,000. The aggressive saving, perfectly combined with uninterrupted market returns, had more than tripled their balance in just 10 years. By age 65, Robert and Jennifer had accumulated a massive $1.65 million. Their modest house was completely paid off. They could retire fully, travel the world extensively, and absolutely never worry about money again. The vast mathematical difference between these two families was not earned by different incomes or secretly superior investment skills. It was earned entirely by radically different decisions made in their 40s. Here is what I find most striking, and perhaps most tragic, about these two stories. During their 40s, both families felt equally satisfied with their daily lives. Psychological research consistently shows that lifestyle inflation provides only a highly temporary happiness boost. Within 18 to 24 short months, people completely adapt to their new, expensive, normal. The thrill disappears. David and Christine did not actually enjoy their 40s any more than Robert and Jennifer did. They just spent drastically more money doing it. The additional, massive spending provided absolutely no lasting satisfaction while permanently and completely constraining their remaining decades on Earth. Let me give you specific, incredibly urgent guidance based entirely on where you currently stand in this timeline. If you are in your 20s or 30s reading this right now, you have the absolute gift of foreknowledge. You now clearly understand that your 40s will present a constant, overwhelming social pressure to rapidly expand your lifestyle. During your peak earning years, build the ironclad habits right now that will fiercely protect you then. Establish heavy, automatic retirement contributions that you absolutely never reduce, regardless of the raises you get. Clearly define what enough is long before your soaring income makes dangerous excess possible. If you are just entering your 40s, you are standing at the absolute most important financial inflection point of your entire life. The exact decisions you make in the incredibly short next 10 years will firmly determine whether you retire completely comfortably or chronically stressed. You must ruthlessly audit every single major expense category right this second. Is your current housing appropriately sized, or is it an ego trap? Are your vehicles merely reliable transportation, or are they expensive status symbols meant to impress people you don't even like? Are you furiously funding your retirement long before funding your lifestyle? Understand this cold math. Every single yes to a lifestyle expansion is a permanent no to your future retirement security. If you are already in your late 40s and painfully recognizing yourself in the wrong financial story today, you still have a very brief window of time to forcefully change trajectories. Every single percentage point you aggressively add to your savings rate right now will significantly improve your final outcome. You must strongly consider radical options that your heavily lifestyle inflated peers absolutely will not consider. Downsize your massive housing right now, rather than desperately waiting until retirement. Immediately sell those expensive, depreciating vehicles. Fiercely seek out taking jobs that pay significantly more, even if they require highly uncomfortable change and learning new skills. If you are already completely past your 40s with terrifyingly inadequate savings, you must urgently focus strictly on what remains entirely within your control. You must heavily delay Social Security to strictly maximize your final monthly benefits. Strongly consider working much longer than you originally planned, perhaps taking on consulting or part time roles. Aggressively downsize your housing immediately to permanently release any trapped equity and slash your ongoing property taxes. Let me directly address something incredibly profound that strongly underlies all of these difficult financial decisions. The intense psychological difficulty of practicing extreme 40s frugality comes entirely from feeling like you have finally earned the unquestionable right to fully enjoy your hard won success. After 20 grueling years of working your way up the corporate ladder, the powerful impulse to finally live well feels completely and utterly justified. You ask yourself, when does the gratification actually arrive? This precise emotional framing is the deadly trap that completely captures most smart, high earning people. The specific gratification you are desperately seeking through massive lifestyle expansion only provides a highly temporary, fleeting pleasure, violently followed by a permanent, inescapable constraint on your future. The massively upgraded house feels incredibly exciting for exactly 18 short months. Then it just feels totally normal, while simultaneously permanently reducing your critical retirement savings. The shiny new luxury car provides a massive thrill for barely a year. Then it simply becomes just a depreciating car that needs expensive oil changes, while permanently and drastically limiting your life options. True, lasting gratification absolutely is not found in rapidly consuming your peak earning years on depreciating assets. It is exclusively found in systematically converting those peak earning years into absolute, permanent freedom. The person who fiercely resists massive lifestyle inflation in their critical 40s experiences genuine, deep gratification every single day of their incredibly comfortable, stress free retirement. The person who aggressively inflated their flashy lifestyle experiences genuine, deeply terrifying stress every single day of their severely constrained, panic filled retirement. The temporary, manageable discomfort of 40s frugality lasts a mere 10 short years. The immense, life changing reward absolutely lasts 30 years or significantly more. Conversely, the fleeting pleasure of 40s indulgence lasts barely 2 to 3 short years. The devastating, inescapable consequence of that indulgence brutally lasts 30 years or significantly more. I want you to vividly picture yourself exactly at 70 years old. You are quietly sitting on a comfortable porch or in a peaceful living room. The early morning is incredibly quiet and still. In one specific version of this future, you are happily thinking about exactly which grandchild you will visit this coming month. You are excitedly planning a long trip somewhere beautiful you have always desperately wanted to see. You are profoundly relaxed because sudden, unexpected expenses simply do not threaten your ironclad stability. In the completely other, terrifying version, you are frantically calculating whether this exact month's Social Security check will somehow cover both your vital medications and your soaring property taxes. You are chronically worried about exactly what happens if your aging car suddenly needs expensive repairs. You constantly feel deeply anxious about an incredibly uncertain future with severely limited options. Both drastically different versions of you made their critical 40s decisions decades earlier. Both versions are currently living entirely with the permanent consequences of those specific choices. Which exact version you inevitably become depends almost entirely on exactly what you do, precisely between age 40 and age 50. It does not depend on blind luck. It does not even depend strictly on massive income. It depends entirely on highly specific decisions about your housing, your vehicles, your children's education, your career path, and your daily lifestyle choices, decisions that compound exactly like money does. Your 40s will end eventually, no matter what. The critical decade will rapidly pass whether you make incredibly intentional, difficult choices or you simply make lazy, default choices. The only question that truly matters is exactly which version of your 70-year-old self you are actively creating right now. Your 40s will completely decide everything. That is not a heavy burden. That is an incredible, once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Exactly what you do with that massive opportunity is entirely 100% up to you.